My guest today on The Meaning Mindset is my very dear, cherished friend, Doug Mankoff. Doug's the founder and the CEO of Echo Lake Entertainment here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. Since launching the company in 1997, he has produced or financed more than 30 films, including Nebraska, Truth, 13 Conversations About One Thing, as well as the acclaimed TV series Hulu's The Great. Many of you have seen that around the world. He's a member of both the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and the Producers Guild of America. He's known for blending his creative vision with a strong sense of ethics in an industry where both can be tested on a daily basis. Today, we're going to talk about his professional journey, personal journey, his approach to storytelling, and what it takes to lead with integrity in any industry, in any business. Join me now as I join Doug Mankoff in the studio. So I'm glad you made the trip over. I really appreciate it. Let's start with today in terms of what you do. How complicated is Hollywood, is your industry, as an industry right now, by all the dynamics that are going on, whether it's country or technology? What's the reality right now that's changed or changing?
Well, Hollywood has changed a lot in recent years. Some of it for the better, for sure. And some of it is challenging, certainly for workers in and around LA in particular, and to a large extent in the United States. And that's as a result of a variety of things. There's AI coming into the picture now. That's causing change, disruption, but it's also enabling people to do things they couldn't do before. So it's there's a lot of tumult. There's a lot of change, and it's stressful for a lot of people. And there's a contraction. Generally, there's a contraction. There's less production going on, and that's difficult. That's stressful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I talk to people in different industries, obviously, as we know, different people that are talking about the same kind of fluctuations. I'm talking to a mortgage broker, and because that industry is under so much duress, he said 30% are left this year, based on last year. In terms of people in his business, 70%, according to the statistic, moved on to other means of earning a living. Maybe they'll come back, and maybe that's what happens in Hollywood as well. People step out because they have to, and then they come back in. Maybe that's a new reality.
There's a big difference in that a lot of people in Hollywood are there because of a passion for being part of the industry, being a storyteller, being an artist. And it's sometimes very hard for them to step out dispassionately as a mortgage broker might if he or she sees an opportunity somewhere else.
Which leads me to a question about you. Well, something that I've always admired about you, and I remember when we first met, I remember you took me to Santa Monica Airport to the hangar, where Michael Nesmith of the Monkees, of course, had created his workspace for his film company, TV company. I don't know what he was doing then. But I knew that you were really intentional from the time I met you, and I know you to be intentional through our friendship. And at the time, it was very clear to me that you were passionate about what you were doing and what you were intending to do. How has that evolved over the years?
So that was a strange time. I had recently graduated from Harvard Business School. Everybody else from Harvard Business School had jobs that were very clear. I got to Hollywood. Michael Nesmith was he was my one connection to Hollywood. My father had done legal work for his mother, Betty Graham, and in the process became friendly with both her and her son, Michael Nesmith. And he was kind enough to employ me not once, not twice, but 3 times. Oh. And this was the third and final time. It was after I had graduated from business school. And the week I got to Hollywood, he said his company filed bankruptcy.
Oh.
He said, but don't worry. It's okay. We're going to start a new company. We're going to set up a new office. And that new office was in a big empty hangar at Santa Monica Airport. So picture this giant hangar with a little desk right in the middle. And that was me, just me at this desk. and I didn't know what the hell I was doing or how to make anything happen. So there was a lot of uncertainty, and I was passionate, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing or what to do. Fortunately, he was a good guide into the industry and introduced me to a lot of people and helped me understand how he had made some money investing in films along the way. Films like Repo Man, which is a really cool film if you've ever seen it.
Of course.
And he had, and then Tapeheads, which was
I remember the name.
Yeah, John Cusack and Tim Robbins, and I think I've got that right. And so he had made several films, and even films that didn't make money in the aggregate made some money. He was able to make some money by dividing and selling rights. So he was a very clever guy. He figured out how to do film finance kind of on his own. He was just a very smart guy. And he also got into the distribution world. So that the company that went bankrupt was called Pacific Arts, and it was a distribution company.
I see.
And so he really had actually access to a lot of different parts of the industry, and I learned a lot from him. The problem was he wasn't very focused at the time, and I had to move on pretty quickly to be able to do what I want. So in answer to your question, what's different between then and now is that, yes, I had passion then, but I didn't really know how and where to channel it. Mm-hmm. And now I know what to do. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I have some experience.
What was his mom known for? She had some acclaim as well.
So his mother, Betty Graham, invented liquid paper.
Oh, that's what it was.
And she was a very, very interesting, bright woman. And what's crazy is that their success stories were parallel, and one was not related to the other. So she was a single mother who was a secretary and invented liquid paper as a way to correct mistakes from typewritten pages, and sold that company ultimately to Gillette. That was what my father helped her with, and with some estate planning. And Michael, in the meantime, had come out to Hollywood with his wife and was trying to find his way as a musician, and ultimately did as one of the Monkees. So they had these independent stories. They weren't even necessarily that close at the time, but they each had their success story. So she was an extraordinary woman, and I remember my father had a great relationship with her. Really learned a lot from her. Yeah.
So I don't remember. I know, obviously, you went to Duke. You studied history at Duke.
Yeah. Was
it world history or specific?
It was just kind of general history. I took a great antebellum South history class with a guy named John Hope Franklin, who was this legendary black professor. I just took a smattering of different types of classes, and it was a real liberal arts education.
Were you intentional at that point about going into film?
Well,
or were you just
so it was after my freshman year in college that I worked for the first time for Michael as a grip and an electrician and a runner in Hollywood. So that summer I did that, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I wanted to figure out how to come back to Hollywood. So while I was at Duke, I took classes in acting and photography and literature, and tried to kind of combine all the pieces because they had no film program at the time.
But then you went to NYU.
Then I went to NYU Film School. I had a photography professor named Alex Harris at Duke, who said, you should just go for the first year and kind of hear what they have to teach you, or gobble up what they have to teach you, and don't feel compelled to stay the whole time.
Because interesting approach.
Yeah, it was. And I also realized while I was there that the program was very much geared toward making you a director. And I thought, if you go to law school, generally you get to be a lawyer.
Right.
But if you go to film school, one or two of you out of 35 might actually get to be a director, and that's about what what happened with my class.
Yeah.
So I had decided I'm not sure I'm one of the one or two, and I'm not sure I have the mindset for it, which is putting all your eggs in one basket for some particular project, being fully dedicated to it, exclusive of everything else. That's just a type of risk that I'm not built to take. So I thought I would try to do something more like being a producer for a while, I thought I wanted to be a writer, but that took a certain kind of focus that I didn't think I possessed.
Interesting. So it seems to me, I mean, I as I said to you, it sounds like a glib thing to say, but you're very intentional. You are very intentional. You probably know that as one of your attributes. I think you're thoughtful. You may be impulsive, but I don't see it in my 30 years of knowing you. But 30 years?
That's about right.
30 years of knowing you. And I think about your dad as operating that way in the world as well. I hear his voice, and I hear his deliberateness. He would be thoughtful, and then he would speak. And I think that obviously became a part of who you are. I also think, knowing your mom, your dad, your late mom and dad, your late in-laws as well, Harvey and Gail, that each of them had a distinct impact on the person that you are and the family that you're raising and the way that you do your work. Do you want to elaborate on any of that?
Well, I'll sort of take it back to how I ultimately wound up here, because after my year of film school, I went to go work for somebody who made videos for schools. This is back in Durham, where I had gone to college. And then I started my own company making videos for camps. And a lot of this was because I wanted to be a Hollywood filmmaker, but I didn't know, or producer, but I didn't know how to do it. And I had no connections, and I had that one connection, but I didn't have a job, and I didn't have the temperament to just come out here and, give it a shot. I always felt like I should have some sort of job. And so after a while, I had been doing this camp video business, and it was going pretty well. We're making videos for camps all over the country. I've got a staff of people working for me, and it was fun, but I was no closer to my goal. And a friend of mine said, you should apply to Harvard Business School. They like entrepreneurs. And they didn't require a test at the time. And I thought, well, that sounds terrific. Yeah, just write essays. I'm pretty good at writing essays. And I did that, and I actually got in, and my dad said, now, why are you doing this again? And I said, well, I'm going to go there, and then I'll go to Hollywood, and apparently some people with their MBA can get jobs at studios. And he said, why don't you just go to Hollywood? And I said, well, this way I'll have a backup in case things don't work out. So I realized at that moment I was wired differently. He was more of a risk taker. Yeah. And I was somebody who wanted to have a backup plan. And so, but I don't think that we're all wired the same. Right. And that's okay. He was definitely intentional in many things, but he also was somebody who tried lots of different things. So I think we're all, when I say that, tried different, I mean, he had a lot of different hobbies. He was a woodworker. He was a painter. He was sort of built for retirement in many ways, although he loved being a lawyer as well. Yeah. What about your other parents, the four of them? My mom, definitely, in some ways, my mom took things, she was a very serious person. So she was an activist, a feminist, but she dressed like this conservative New England woman, which is where she's from. And she had a view that we should behave a certain way, we should have good grammar, we should present ourselves properly. She took her activism as if it was her vocation, it was her job. She was very serious about it. And then later in life, she became a philanthropist, and she really addressed that the same way. She took it very, very seriously. And so that seriousness that she went about things, doing good or doing whatever we do in life, I took to heart. Right. Harvey, very gregarious guy, very good with people, very good with personnel. He was a headhunter, and he gave me lots of thoughts about how to structure deals with employees. I learned a lot from him. And Gail was just absolutely one of the kindest, sweetest people, but who didn't suffer fools gladly, which I always thought was amusing. Yeah. She was terrific. No, I had great influences from my you have, and especially the gift for me, knowing your family over this period of time, is I got to see and get to know them and what they stood for and how they were in the world, and then see the next generation, and now see the next generation, which is extraordinary. What about, you're somebody that I think of as being both creative and obviously adept at running a company successfully. Echo Lake is not just producing a movie at a time. You're also cultivating talent. You're managing talent. You're managing writers, directors.
What are you doing, and how much of it feels creative, is creative, satisfies that part of you?
So the company does a number of different things. We're a management company. We represent writers, directors, and actors. We're also a production company. We started as a production and finance company, using a lot of what I learned when I worked for Michael Nesmith. There's always been a balance of business and creativity in what I do, which I love. I really love being able to use both sides of my brain. A good day is a day when I've worked with a writer and we've talked about ideas and developed story, and I've closed a deal.
Yeah.
Or done some kind of, helped in some sort of negotiation, or helped one of our managers with a client issue. So I really like both those things. Part of that is because sometimes things creatively move so slowly. It takes so long to get a movie going or to turn this book into a TV series. Whatever endeavor can take so long. And so we have a lot of different projects going at the same time. And sometimes it's closing a deal or doing something that's financial gives one a fulfillment that you're not getting as you're waiting for a director to read your project and hopefully help it
or
move
a buyer or
a lot of one of our clients, John Emile, great director, once said we were waiting to hear back from somebody. He said, "Well, now we wait. It's what we do best."
Well, so he's a fisherman.
Yeah, you got to wait
out there.
There's a lot of waiting.
Yeah, and are you well set up for that? I mean, personally.
Listen, it is challenging to wait.
Yeah.
It's hard to wait. And part of the way I've structured my business has been to try to avoid waiting too much. We're an independent film and TV production company. We try not to rely too much on studios or the buyers to basically greenlight our projects. So we would often move forward on a movie before we had a studio or a home for it in the U.S. We would instead hire a foreign sales agent, do a lot of the international sales, put the money together ourselves, so we didn't have to wait for that one gatekeeper to say yes.
Which was the tradition in Hollywood.
Right. Most people would wait for the gatekeeper, and they knew them well, and the gatekeeper liked their stuff, and it was right down the middle of what they were looking for. A lot of the things that I would present would be either between genre lines or more challenging, more thought-provoking, and not clearly what they were looking for. So we would make it and then sell it afterwards.
With risk.
With risk,
yeah,
absolutely.
So you took the risk on.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't get their buy-in, you didn't have it. But if you did, they took the risk from you, presumably.
Yeah.
Or a lot of it.
Yeah. A lot of it has to do with risk. So when a studio buys something, whether it's made or not made, they're assuming the risk at that point.
Right.
And they have to get paid for taking that risk. So part of our financial model was to delay that as long as possible, so that if you make it and you've taken the risk of making it well out of the equation, then hopefully you get to keep a little bit more for taking that risk, and the studio that buys it pays a little extra.
The studio, presumably in the old model, would be, presumably they would govern with an iron fist or a gentle hand the process, the timing, the quality, what they felt was coming out. And whose responsibility is that now in the independent world?
Well, that's right. The studio would often, as soon as the studio is involved, they're the 800-pound gorilla. They get to decide everything. We want this blue, not red. And that's challenging for a lot of the filmmakers too, because a lot of independent filmmakers want to make those choices. So in the independent model, you would try to keep some of that decision-making for the filmmaker, and the producer would work with the filmmaker to try to work those things out.
So you're acting as the studio in this case?
To some extent, yeah.
You're putting some pressure on the timing and the use of funds and even the nature of the script, presumably, in its final form. And as an independent producer, are you in on all the post work? Are you able to say, I want that edit, not this edit? or do you leave them to it and trust their judgment?
It's always it depends on the situation, it depends on the filmmaker. It's a gentle balance, let's put it that way. We made a movie with Alexander Payne, and we didn't, he was kind enough to show us some things, and we laughed and said, this looks great, and the movie came out amazing. Pedro Almodovar, same thing. But then when you're working with a first or second time filmmaker, a lot of times there'll be an opportunity to have an exchange back and forth and to really try to find the best edit possible.
One of the things that I remember in our early conversations about your work, of so many, was that you were very, again, I'm going to use the word intentional in terms of the message of the movie. I feel like you've always had an ethical component to the work you do, not only the way you do that, and we could talk about that, but the kind of your output as a film company. What does that mean to you? What does it feel like to do that? And how challenging is it?
I wouldn't say message to the movie, because I'm not sure.
Well, maybe not a message, but I'll give it a sense of character.
Yeah, I've always been interested in, and what I think has drawn me to this business and to the business of storytelling is the power of exploration of what it means to be human or a better human. And the kind of stories that I want to be involved with have to do with characters in challenging situations.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the kind of story of a character who just gets worse and worse as the show goes.
Plenty of that out
and
there.
There is some of that out there. But I like the idea of some sort of journey, heroic journey, and that somehow through it all we see the person is a better human or a more complete human than when we start. To me, I just find that fascinating. I never get tired of that.
Right.
And that's what draws me in. And the more I can relate to that challenge or to what's going on, the more I think an audience can relate to it, the more attracted I am to it. So that's what I usually push into. And so, as an example, we did this TV show, The Great, which came to me actually as a feature.
Oh.
It was a feature script, and it was a beautiful script by a guy named Tony McNamara, Australian playwright and screenwriter. And he had written this originally as a play, and it was performed in Sydney. And I was struck by, it's very funny, but and irreverent and fun. But what really drew me in is how Catherine changes. She's kind of a spoiled young woman who thinks, oh, it'd be nice to be a ruler of a country. And over the course of the story, she sort of falls in love with the Russian people and sees what her responsibility really is and takes it very seriously. And the big challenge to it all is Peter, who's just an absolute bastard.
Yeah.
So we can all relate to that, right? We can relate to someone who's kind of spoiled or someone who's entitled, starting to realize they actually have an opportunity to do some good and rising to that occasion. That's a story. That's the part of it that really drew me in. So everything we've been involved with for the most part has had something like that. And when it hasn't been there, it's usually not turned out very well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
If you look back, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm drawn in reading also to books where you have the hero's journey, the heroine's journey. The part of the heroine's journey, by the way, hero's journey, that doesn't always get told is when they come back to their people at the end. If you think about the end of that arc, they're meant to go on the journey and they're meant to come back and teach the journey in the end. Maybe that's the book or the film. That's the teacher. But I don't know that we ever see that or often see that when it's told. What's it like being intent on your own ethics as a movie maker and as a human being, as a father of your kids, husband to your wife, in an industry where people are really struggling to get stuff done? And there are presumably ethical choices every day.
So there's a challenge for producers often, which is how to get your movie made, you need to make it sound and feel real. So it's very tempting to tell somebody, oh, I've got so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then once you have so-and-so, you can get this, or you can get the money, or you can, so there's a real temptation to be loose with the truth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of producers on kind of morally shaky ground. It's a little less so today than it used to be, but when I got into the business, I saw a lot of that and a lot of bad behavior. And so my view was, we're going to be the guys who tell the truth. We always tell the truth. It's something I talk to employees about when they come into the company. We're going to be the ones who say, we tell people like it is. We're transparent, and that will be part of what makes us stand out. And it's been more challenging for some than others, but that's generally what we do. That's what we try to do. It's hard because sometimes I will see a manager, for example, not being as forthcoming as they should be, and I will suggest that they try to be forthcoming.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fire them necessarily, but I try to make it very clear that that's what we do. Same thing with assistants. If an assistant makes a mistake, we tell them, just tell us you made the mistake.
Right.
And then we can help you fix it. But don't try to cover it up. That's not good. So a part of it at work, it's just everybody being truthful with one another, which sounds very basic, but believe it or not, is actually somewhat rare in our business.
Aren't you more challenged by the fact that many people in your company are relying on the success of what they're doing, not just the company's success? Meaning they're going to make money if their project or their client does well. So their ethical choices are, to some degree, have to align with yours because they're under the umbrella of Echo Lake Entertainment. But at the same time, if they have temptation, it's also because they have to pay the bills at the end of the month. And that's driving a decision that they're making, which is ethically in the wrong direction.
But it's a reflection on all of us.
Right.
So if one person at the company is dishonest about something and that gets out, that reflects on all of us.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's very, very important that everybody live by the same rule. So, and generally right now we've got a team that gets that and is very forthright with the truth, very transparent, et cetera.
What are other ethical, I'll just call it the difficult choices that you have to make in your work if they come to mind? I mean, that's an obvious and important one.
Yeah. Look, AI has presented a lot of questions to us.
Right. On the writing side only?
No, not just on the writing side. I think really on how we have a lot of employees who don't want to use it at all.
Right.
My middle child, Max, doesn't want me to use it because of the environmental concerns.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Which I understand and I want to be aware of. But on the other hand, I don't want to be left behind. I don't want to be, I want to be able to achieve our goals the best we can, and AI is becoming a helpful way to do that.
It is.
So, but a lot of the younger people in the company give me a hard time because I'll come up with a list. A lot of what you do as a producer is you need to come up with a list. Who are some good writers of action movies for male-oriented audience or whatever it is, and you can actually have AI help you do that. And it used to be that you would have a person help you do that, and it's still better to have the person. I mean, what you come up with, what I come up with from prompting AI, doesn't usually get the results we want.
So you need a hybrid.
You kind of need a hybrid, and but a lot of my employees really question whether is this ultimately going to be putting somebody out of a job, and they don't like that, and that concerns them. We've just started representing a company that is an AI company that helps do scheduling and budgeting for films and television. Now, the argument for it is that producers now can, with this program, they can really afford to see how expensive their show is going to be without spending $5,000 to $10,000.
Wow.
And so they're more likely to get it budgeted using this program, which makes it more likely they can get it made, because it's very important to know how much it's going to cost as you go out to the town to try to raise the money to make it. So the flip side is that somebody's getting paid less money.
Sure.
For they're not having by hand to do a schedule and then a budget. So there's certainly ethical questions with regard to that.
But the flip side to that is the movie isn't getting made, perhaps.
Right.
And therefore, all these people aren't going to be gainfully employed.
That's right. That's right. look, where you shoot something involves ethical issues.
Of course.
We've never shot in LA. I would love to shoot in LA. It would be the best thing in the world. The problem is it's very expensive, and the incentive that we have isn't really set up for independence, because you don't know if you have it until you have everything put together. And the only way we know if we have the budget put together is once we know how much we're getting from the incentive. So it's a chicken and egg sort of situation. Whereas if you go to the state of Washington, you know you're going to get 30%.
So why can't they, if you realize that, and everybody realizes that in your business, why can't the city and the state realize that and get ahead of it and just say, we're going to solve this for you. We need your business here.
Good question.
I mean, I don't know what their disincentive is. I don't know why did Canada take the business? Why didn't we get on that as soon as we saw the threat?
Well, I think
I say Canada just as one example.
Yeah, I look, the other thing working against us with Canada is that we have a strong dollar. Now it's less strong now, but that's always been part of it. I think for a while we were the giant, and everybody kind of was picking away at our business, but we weren't being proactive at trying to keep it. And it's questionable as to whether a state that has a big incentive, whether that works out well for them financially. Is that in fact good? I mean, it's good to have people gainfully employed, but on the other hand, at what cost? So there've been a lot of questions about that.
So somebody analyzing that, it reminds me of the assumption that I make, that when a cruise ship comes into port, all the businesses and individuals living in that town are going to benefit. And I remember in Italy talking to a guy who'd done the analysis. He said, it's not true. He said, the fact is they don't come into the restaurants because they're going back to the buffet, and they don't buy a cocktail because they have a wristband, means they're going to get 9 cocktails for free. So they're not really doing that. It's a facade. I don't know if that's somehow true in this case too.
I haven't really studied the numbers and to know how beneficial it is. I mean, it's interesting that some places like in Canada have had their tax credit for a long, long, long time. So you'd think it would be serving some benefit, but sometimes in some places it's a cultural benefit as well. They want to have, Canada, for example, wants to have Canadian stories. They don't want to just have American stories imported there. Yeah. So that's a big part of why they do it. In France, they have the same kind of cultural protection as one of their goals. So it's hard to know.
Going back to the issue of ethics, everybody in anything they do has to exercise their ethics. That's what we're relying on. I can't remember who it was who said, it was on NPR, and it was a fantastic little thing where they would have people record their thought. And he said, as I'm driving down the road, he says, I'm relying on the thoughts and behaviors of the guy in the other lane coming in my direction. That's the society we live in. We're all reliant on one another. I think it's somebody from government at some point in history. What does that look like in terms of modeling that for younger people in our society and modeling it because you do a lot of mentoring. It seems like a lot of your work is mentoring based on experience and knowledge. How do you mentor that? How do you model that?
I think there's a balance, right? Because you want to be an ethical, kind organization, but you also want to win. Right. And you want to work hard. And you want to show people that hard work and sometimes you have to be tough, that's okay, but you can do it in a way that is fair and still at the end of the day kind. So I think it's trying to do that by example. It's trying to make choices that reflect that. It's hiring people who seem to have those values. It's living a life at home also that shows some kind of balance. And trying to have these conversations with those around me that sometimes are not the easiest things to talk about. I had a tough decision today and something that we had to deal with and talking about it in a sense that hopefully is helpful.
Yeah, I think that's part of the communication piece, which is vulnerability, being able to say, I messed up today, or I had a difficult decision that's still weighing on me. It reminds me of the study that was done that talked about, and actually Ron and I were talking about it this morning, the idea that kids are more resilient if they know more about the struggles of their parents and grandparents. The more they know about what they went through, the more resilient they become in general terms. And I think that's kind of what you're saying as I hear it, which is your kids, our kids, and the people in our work life get to see, okay, somebody I admire, in this case, their dad, let's say, has gone through some challenges on a day-to-day basis, and particularly this one, and they're okay. They stumble sometimes, they get up again. That's powerful.
Yeah, I look, I'm not one who just wants to leave the problems of work at work. I don't mind sharing those with the kids. I like hearing their thoughts, getting their ideas, and also just sharing with them the kind of things that I struggle with, because I agree they're gonna face struggles, and it's good to have a conversation about how to deal with those things.
It seems to me, knowing you as well as I do, that you're very meaning oriented. You're living that kind of life. And you're also somebody who so often we start a conversation, you'll tell me something you learned in a Talmud class or a Torah class or something you read. So you're constantly trying to better yourself. Is that fair?
It is fair. It's. I'm just thinking. I'm saying that to my friend the rabbi. That's risky, but
No,
yeah, I do
often. Or you'll send me something. You say, "Look at this. I read this."
Yeah.
Or study this in class.
Yeah. No, I'm. And listening to your podcasts and listening to interesting discussions, that motivates me. It gets me excited, and I'm always wondering about why I've been put on this earth, what my main goal is, and I'm trying my hardest to figure my way out.
How do you answer that today?
I think I was put here to be part of helping storytellers get their stories told in a good and powerful way that helps better those who have access to those stories. That's a sort of long-winded way of putting it. I think that's one of my purposes. I think it's trying to build mensches in my family and in the world through the stories that get told.
Yeah.
If that's not too presumptuous.
It's a great intention, right? Yeah. And we might do it inconsistently, but I think you're doing it. I think about legacy a lot, looking at people at different stages in life, and I think it's not going to be an accident what your legacy is. You'll have been thoughtful about it. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And maybe people are drawn to this kind of conversation, or people who are saying, I could listen to a sports story or even the news, but I want to learn something about myself through somebody else's story. Do you see that people around you are taking this to heart when you say developing mensches? Clearly you're doing that in your family. Do you see that in the work world as well? The people, you are an exemplar of a certain way of working that is having impact on other people. I don't mean to answer arrogantly. That's not who you are. But do you see that even subtly you're having that kind of effect through your career?
I hope so. I think so, and I hope so. Look, one of the businesses we're in that sort of came out of the film finance business is we distribute the rights to films on airlines around the world. So we'll basically buy the airline rights or license the airline rights. We'll do that at a market like Cannes or the AFM or Berlin. And that helps the filmmaker because they're licensing also the German rights and the French rights, and that helps them finance their movie. And at the end of the process of selling, they go to the bank, and the bank lends against all of the distributor's commitments. So then they get to make it, and then a year or so later they deliver it, and we pay them what we licensed to pay, and then we take it out to the airlines and we sell it. And the way these deals works, they're usually a percentage basis. So we're just licensing the rights, and we'll charge some kind of distribution fee, and then the rest goes to the producer, who brought it to us. And we are always very fast and very transparent at the reporting, and we pay overages on almost every movie. So we do well generally and owe them some money. And there are a lot of times they're shocked, like, oh my God, the distributor is paying us money. We're not used to distributors being that open and that quick. And we do it quickly. The guy who works for me in that department it takes pride in it. Like he wants to, as soon as we know those numbers, he wants to get the calculation done. And even though a lot of businesses would say, sit on the money for 30 days, earn a little interest. And I even had that conversation when he's like, no, I think it's better to just get it out there, and it will do so. It feels good. It feels good to get it off my desk, and it feels great for them. And it shows that we're a company that actually cares. So that's an example, I would say.
Great piece of your reputation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what?
Priority.
Makes it easier to license the next movie.
Yeah.
They want to license them to us. So that makes it nice. So there's an example of kind of doing right, being ethical, and it also paying off in the long run.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Torah ethic of pay your workers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Love that idea. Now, we don't do that at the end of the day, but here's a version of it. Not the end of the month if you don't have to. Yeah. How is the theater part of your business doing?
So recently we started investing in Broadway shows and shows in the UK. More in the UK, less in Broadway, but it's very challenging to make the economics of Broadway work because the costs are a lot higher. The UK part of it has been great. And I mean, really both parts of it have been great. And we're learning a lot. And I think we're making some money. It's kind of hard to tell because a lot of it just takes a while. It's still playing. And you assume it's playing because you're making money. And we seem to be doing okay. I'm very proud of the shows that we've invested in terms of supporting great content. Stereophonic was one. Prima Facie was one that just good, strong stories that I think do the world good.
Amazing.
John Proctor as the villain is a recent one that was on Broadway that I'm very excited about. I actually got my brother to invest in that with us, and he's like, "Wow, this hit big. Everybody's talking about it. It got nominated for Tony Awards," and I just sort of explained to him yesterday. Yeah, that's great. So at the end of the run, we will, from all the ticket sales, we'll have recouped 40%. He's like, what? How is that possible? Well, but don't worry, there's a tax credit that'll be another 40%. He's like, wait, we're still under, then there'll be a little dribs and drabs as it gets performed around the country and in other places.
Really? Even after a successful run, Tony Award nominations?
And then it goes to England and we'll get a little of that money. And I think I've disabused him of the inclination to ever invest in another Broadway show.
Is that why people are so hesitant about theater?
It's really tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
So even great successes underneath have a
but look, we actually think we think that will do well in the long run. But it is, but you'd think, I mean, it's like one of the very top shows of the year. You'd think it would have.
Hard to get tickets to, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about turning those into TV or film? Is that an option in some cases?
By the time we get involved in the theater investing, that's been taken care of. Now
I see.
We're producing a few plays, and that's actually what got us into this. For example, you may recall that we helped produce and finance a movie called Water by Deepa Mehta many years ago.
Movies.
It's a beautiful movie. So I've wanted to make that into a play for many years.
Right.
We partnered with a British producer named James Bierman, and we're working on that now. So that's
right.
And then James actually said, well, would you like to invest in a show that I'm doing? And that's sort of what got us started.
So there's film to the stage.
That's right. And then stage to film.
Yeah, that's great. So if it isn't about only the money, what's it about for you when it comes to theater decisions?
Well, it's also, look, it is about, the goal is to make money doing it, but we also want to have our names on because you actually get your name on as a producer, even if you're just an investor at a certain level. And we want to have our names on shows that we can be proud of.
Yeah.
So
it's part of legacy as well.
It's part of legacy, and it's part of people out there. You're a British agent, and you go to the play, and you look up and you say, oh, Echo Lake was involved in the show. And I didn't realize they were doing that. And it's a nice thing to be able to talk about. And
presumably it gives you access to different clients potentially on the management side.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. In fact, we invested in a musical production of Benjamin Button, and I loved it. I thought it was a great show. It was in the UK, and the actor John Dalglish won his second Olivier for playing the lead of this. He's just terrific, and nobody had signed him in the US, so we mentioned it to some of our colleagues in the management side of the company, and they signed him.
Oh, fantastic.
And hopefully we'll get him working.
So it's
soon.
everything is supporting everything else in some ways.
That's right.
That's exciting. And it also sounds to me like there's a lot of variety in your Monday through Friday. A lot of things
That's
that you're
right.
involved
And I
in,
like
which
that.
is exciting.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but when we were, getting to know each other 30 years ago, we both always had sort of side things that interested us. And so you were an opera singer,
right,
but you were a cantor, and you had this idea and that idea.
plates.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know if everybody's wired this way, but we in particular are wired that way, to not put all our eggs necessarily in one basket, and to have other things going on, like perhaps a podcast in addition to
exactly.
your day job.
This is an indicator of that. For me, I realize about myself. I need multiple things. I think they feed me in a certain way. I don't know that I could do accountancy well, aside from my relationship to numbers. Or, I just feel like working on a project that supports another project, that supports the main work that I'm doing. This, to me, as I said to you, Jonah and I talk about the idea that his daughter's kids will presumably have access to this, because this should be available. Presumably, what's on the internet, this kind of media, is going to stay around, like the work that you produce, which is a responsibility. It's fantastic. In terms of your company, what do you look for in terms of hiring when you're hiring assistants, managers, and what's your process like?
We want to hire people who want to win, are good team players, are kind and honest, and obviously are smart and can figure their way out, figure out how to run their business or help us run our business. It's great if they've seen lots of movies or television shows and can talk about them in an intelligent way. It's great if they know who the actresses are and the writers are. But that's all a bonus. They'll learn that stuff while they're working with us in many cases. We want to have we want people to want to come to work and be around these other people.
Yeah.
So I've had people, not many, but a few people who I worked with who you'd see them at work and it wouldn't make you feel good. And we don't want those people. And generally we don't have any of them now. Yeah. So it's kind of amazing. So it's great if you have people around you who just do something for you. You see them and you just are happy to see them.
I think the same thing. We probably talked about it when I have interviewed people. Is this somebody I want to spend a lot of time with? Because it'll be a lot of time, hopefully over many, many years. Do they bring joy and excitement and creativity?
And do they smile?
Yeah, that's right.
Do they look like someone who is generally happy? If it's somebody who's generally not happy or going to be grumpy or going to be talking badly about things or people, we don't need them around. There's enough negativity in the challenges of business in general without having that.
Yeah. Doug, thank you so much. Our conversation continues because thank God our friendship does. But this hour is really a pleasure. And I hope other people will derive benefit from it as well. Clarity. People are always coming into these worlds, especially Hollywood. So if people can hear these stories and hear about how intentional you are, using that word again, how thoughtful you are in terms of what you're building and how you're building it, and really also ask themselves about different definitions of success, because I think you have multiple aspects to the success that you're creating. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
This season is produced and edited by Jonah Lee Paz. Content editing by Bronwyn Lee Paz. Musical theme by Amox Plesner. Logo art by Janice Rudnitsky. Graphic design by Gustav Lee Paz. Social media management by Morgan Shanahan and Sophie Bergeron. The Meaning Mindset with Rabbi Ron is hosted by Rabbi Ron Lee Paz. Find us wherever you find your podcasts.